Building the Samurai Carpenter Workbench, Part 1, the bench top. I decided to do a workbench that would stress my woodworking abilities and teach me a lot of new things. I ran across Samurai Carpenter workbench video and was just enthralled. I thought, no way in the world I can do that, but I think I'm going to give it a try. It certainly will be a learning experience. If I can do it, and if it comes out right, it will be essentially heirloom quality, meaning that I can pass it on to my son or one of my grandsons. So I'm looking forward to it for a lot of different reasons. So this is part 1 is about doing the bench top. And if you're on this adventure, let me know in the comments below, and happy woodworking. Here I thought I would show you the workbench top and the aprons and the legs and the base in their fairly rough form. I'm trying to get everything cut to size before I take on the mortise and tenon work. This whole thing will be put together with mortise and tenon. So this, I think I said earlier birch, but this is all white maple, and then black walnut for the ends, and then the legs and base and other trestles are all red oak. The black walnut end pieces will have 2 tenons going partway through them, and then 6 through tenons with little splits being used as well. So it's going to be an adventure. So making some progress. Here I've purchased some 8/4 and some 6. The woods are going to be white maple, red oak, and black walnut. And now I'm cutting them, ripping them to just over 4 1/4 inches, so that they're going to become 4 inches later, and I will want to be able to run them through the thickness planer after they get laminated. So there's the black walnut. Then cross-cutting to approximate size. Never try to use the miter to cross-cut exactly. Running things through the jointer in order to make sure I have a flat face and a flat edge on everything, and then smoothing things off and milling them down through the thickness planer to get them to approximate sizes, again oversized, so that I can then laminate and then run them through the thickness planer to final size. The barrel filled up really quickly. I was surprised by using the thickness planer, so you got to watch that barrel. I laminated things together, and then I planed, or excuse me, used my bench planes to get one side flat so that I could run it through the thickness planer. Then I'm cutting tenons, so I just used my circular saw to cut across, nowhere near the actual final line. I'll fine-tune that with chisels and shoulder planes and my rabbet plane. So that's what I'm doing here, is getting it down, smoothed out and down to size. I wanted to try several different methods of cutting these tenons. So here's a second method where I'm kind of doing cuts through the waist area, again nowhere near my final line, and then I'm going to turn the circular saw the other way and cut across, again nowhere near my final line. I want to leave my tenons oversized so that if I happen to cut my mortises too big, my tenons can still fit snugly. Here's another method of using my plunge router to cut the tenon down to approximate size, again oversized, so I can cut it down again later. I even wanted to experiment with my bench plane, or my bench router, sorry, and then finally decided the best way was the plunge router, and that's the way I'm going to go do these things in the future. Although I'm going to go to a little bit more effort to set up more boards around my workpiece to stabilize the router so it won't tip in a direction. Now I had to cut off some area off the ends because my tenon doesn't go from side to side. So I just use a Japanese saw to do that, as you can see. Nothing magical about that process. And that is, then I'm again running some boards through to get them. These are now the red oak for the legs. So I'm going to take various 8/4 and 4/4, 6/4 red oaks and mill them down to size, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and then laminate them together, and then cut them down to final size. So I have laminated my red oak together. Now I need to get some. Actually, I'm cutting them down to final size, which I do on the table saw crosscut sled. This is the Stumpy Nugs Mega crosscut sled, and what I'm doing first is just getting a clean cut on one side, and then I will use that side to get a clean crosscut at the exact measurements that I want on the other side. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to finish cutting these to exact size, and then I'm going to run them through the thickness planer to get them down to where they really match up well with each other so that I can then start a lamination. So I'll let you enjoy the music for a few seconds, and then we'll come back and talk about a special technique during the glue up.
This particular piece is going to end up being a 4x4 leg. I've got to do 4 of them, obviously, plus 2 bases. So all of those end up being 4x4. Well, I'm not going to buy 4x4 stock. So I get the smaller hardwood, I mill it to what I need. In this case, I'm going to have 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/2. Put that all together. Two of them are on the outside are going to be 27 inches. The one in the middle is the 1 1/2 is 30 inches, so therefore I'm going to have a 3-inch tenon on the end. It is going to have to be cut on the edges so that it's the right dimension in that perspective. So anyway, this is about gluing up technique. I'll fast forward through the actual glue up. There's nothing magical about putting glue on some boards, and so watch the fast forward and we'll meet you back to show you what the actual technique is. Okay, now here's the problem. When you get these all glued, glue all over them, and you try to put them together and you try to clamp them, they squirt around, they move. And that makes it difficult to get them lined up perfectly. So here's the technique. Turn them over this way. Grab a panel clamp. I got quite a bit of glue on there. I'm not a fan of using a wet rag, but I made a little mistake there. All that probably did now was put glue right there. So grab that panel clamp, put it, open the jaws, put it around your board, let the jaws close down, bring it up onto your work table, and start to tighten it a little bit. What you're doing is aligning, at least on the bottom, your boards. And now things aren't sliding around. You can adjust them to get them right where you want them. Okay, we'll tighten that down a little bit more. So that's the trick right there, using your panel clamp. That's not what's going to hold it. We need the glue pressure to be this way. So now we're going to come in and use our clamps that are going to put the pressure in the direction that it needs to be in order to get some squeeze out.
Here I'm moving the panel clamp further and further down the workpiece and then putting on my little Bessie 4-inch clamps for the squeeze out. Turning it over and putting clamps on the other side. Not overdoing the pressure so as to dent the workpiece. Okay, I purposely cut the two 27-inch side pieces long so that I could then bring them down to exactly the size I need. The damage you see on the tongue is from the thickness planer, snipe, but that's going to get cut off, so it's no problem. Here I'm using my low angle block rabbet plane and chisel to again try to get that tongue down to precisely 3 inches for my mortise and tenon. It was a lot more work than I anticipated, particularly when I had to do it for 4 different legs. Now I've moved to where I'm going to cut off the very edges of the tenons because they don't go from edge to edge, and so I'm using my Stumpy Nubs Mega Crosscut sled with the tenon jig that is part of that design, and first time I've really used it in production, and I'm very, very happy with the way that it worked. So once I got it set up precisely, then I can put in all 4 legs on 2 sides each, or do 8 cuts and get my 8 tenons. Only problem is I could not raise the blade high enough to get all the way up to the shoulder, so I have to do a little trim up when I'm done with this. Now I'm for the piece that I could not do with the blade the other way, now I'm just running the blade underneath to get the rest of the tenon. I've got my regular blade on there instead of my flat top blade, so I will have to come back and trim up with a chisel.
We're working on the legs to the Samurai Carpenter workbench. We're working on the tenons. We were able to cut using our jig, our tenon jig on our table saw. We have a Stubby Nubs crosscut mega sled and then a jig for that for cutting tenons. But I was only able to go up a certain distance because of the thickness of the crosscut sled. So then I had a little section I had to finish off, a little over 1/2 inch, and very little depth, about 1/8 of an inch. So we're gonna do some design shaping to this base, and then we're gonna cut the mortise in here to receive this tenon. That'll give me my 2 bases and my 4 legs. We're gonna have some through tenons with a wedge going in them, if you've seen the Samurai Carpenter design. So we're having fun working on it. Thank goodness for all these mortises. I did go ahead and buy a Powermatic benchtop mortise machine, and so I'm looking forward to doing a lot of practice before I work on my real wood. Coming along. Maybe someday we'll actually finish it. Small workshop guy working on a Samurai workbench, signing off.